You have made a grave accusation, Miss Bertrand. President Donald Trump's voice cut through the tense silence of the White House briefing room, his tone dangerously calm. He locked eyes with the CNN correspondent in the front row. Now, in front of the world, you will answer for it. The air crackled with tension as the cameras zoomed in, and Natasha Bertrand's smug confidence began to falter, realizing too late that she had walked into a trap with no escape. The day had begun like any other in the nation's bustling capital, marked by a routine war of words. The White House press secretary stood at the podium, a stack of papers in hand, ready to deliver the administration's daily message. But Natasha Bertrand of CNN had other plans. She wasn't there to report the message. She was there to be the message. The moment the floor opened for questions, her hand shot up like a predator sensing an opening. "Ma'am," Natasha began, her voice laced with a practiced, feigned respect that barely concealed her contempt. "My network has obtained information from multiple high-level intelligence sources that the President's new trade agreement with the nation of Alaria is, in fact, a complete sham." A murmur rippled through the room. The press corps watched closely as the press secretary's smile tightened. "That is a significant and baseless accusation, Natasha. The Alarian deal is a landmark achievement that will create thousands of American jobs." But Natasha smirked, leaning into the microphone as if revealing a grand secret. "Is it because my sources deeply embedded in the diplomatic and intelligence communities describe it as a Trojan horse, a deal designed not to create jobs, but to funnel money directly to shell corporations owned by allies of the President? Are you denying that specific high-value mineral rights were signed over for pennies on the dollar in a backroom annex to the deal?" The attack was sharp, laced with just enough technical jargon to sound credible, like a missile aimed squarely at the President's integrity. The press secretary pushed back, her voice firm but defensive. "I am denying your entire premise, which is built on anonymous whispers and a clear political agenda. The deal is transparent, and the full text has been made available, but the damage was done." Natasha's words were already shaping into headlines. CNN reports, "Trump's Alarian deal enriches allies." The Chiron was likely being typed in real time. For the next 10 minutes, she dominated the briefing, interrupting, challenging, and spinning every denial as further evidence of a cover-up. Her report, a toxic cocktail of innuendo and anonymous sourcing, went viral. The narrative was set. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her eyes just before she rose. By lunchtime, Natasha Bertrand's explosive accusation had consumed the airwaves. Pundits dissected every loaded word, and the White House remained silent. No statement, no rebuttal. To Bertrand and her colleagues, the silence screamed guilt. Then at 2 p.m., every reporter's phone buzzed with an alert. "The President of the United States will hold a press conference at 3 p.m. A surge of anticipation electrified the press. Course Trump was cornered and coming out swinging. Bertrand felt adrenaline flood her veins as she took her seat front and center, pen poised, ready to finish what she started. But she had no idea she was walking into an execution. At precisely 3 p.m., President Donald Trump entered the room, not angry, not shaken, but calm and in total control. He surveyed the crowd before fixing his gaze squarely on her. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice clear and deliberate. "I'm sure you're all expecting a statement. A denial, perhaps. Maybe even some anger." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "But today is not about me. It's about the truth and a very dangerous lie told from this very room this morning." Then, locking eyes with Bertrand, he said, "Miss Bertrand, please stand up." Startled, she hesitated. "This morning," the President continued, his voice like steel, "you accused my administration and me personally of corruption. You claimed, citing high-level intelligence sources, that a trade deal intended to help the American people was a sham. You told the world it was designed to enrich my friends. Those are very serious charges. Do you stand by your reporting, Miss Bertrand? This was her moment, every camera on her, pressure mounting. She had to show strength. I do, Mr. President. My sources are impeccable, and my reporting is accurate. The arrogance returned to her voice. Impeccable, Trump repeated, nodding slowly. Good. I'm glad you're so confident. He turned slightly and gestured to the large screens flanking the podium. You referenced two sources specifically. You didn't name them. Of course you called them a senior diplomatic official and an intelligence officer with direct knowledge of the negotiations. Is that correct? Natasha stiffened. My sources are anonymous, Mr. President, she replied, a trace of desperation creeping into her tone. Oh, I know, Trump said with a thin smile, but they're not anonymous to me. At that moment, the screen lit up with an image and the room held its breath. A photo appeared on the screen behind him. This is Mark Calloway, the president announced, his tone cutting. Fired from the State Department 6 months ago for leaking classified information to the press. A man with a documented history of insubordination and very public grudge against my administration. Is this your senior diplomatic official, Miss Bertrand? Natasha's face drained of color. She stood frozen, mouth slightly agape. Then another image appeared. And this, Trump continued, his voice hardening, is Julia Vincenta, mid-level analyst, who was removed from the Orion negotiation team after she was caught attempting to illegally record a private briefing. She was never publicly disciplined. We allowed her to resign quietly to avoid a scandal. Is this your intelligence officer with direct knowledge? The room fell into stunned silence. Every journalist had turned not toward the president, but toward Natasha Bertrand, who looked as if the floor had disappeared beneath her. Your impeccable sources. Miss Bertrand, Trump declared, his voice rising with righteous indignation, are two disgruntled former employees with a clear and provable vendetta. They didn't just lie to you, you chose to believe them because their lies fit your network's hateful narrative. You didn't vet, you didn't verify, you simply took their poison and injected it into the veins of this country. He wasn't finished, but don't take my word for it. He nodded to his staff. This morning, after your malicious report aired, I made a phone call not to my lawyers, not to my staff, but to President Nakumo of Alaria. I told him what you and your network had accused us of. He was appalled. He was insulted. And he, along with his trade delegation, offered to clear the air. The screens behind Trump flickered to life, revealing a live video feed from the Alarian capital. President Nakumo sat at a stately desk, flanked by his top trade ministers. Mr. President Nakumo began, his voice rich with dignity. It is an honor to address the American people. I want to be unequivocally clear. The report that aired on CNN this morning is a disgusting fabrication. It is an insult to my nation and to the integrity of your president. He then held up a copy of the trade agreement. This deal represents the greatest economic opportunity in my country's history. President Trump fought for the American worker with tremendous strength, and we fought for the Alarian people. President Nakumo continued, his voice firm and unwavering. The result was a tough, fair, and completely transparent agreement that will benefit both our nations for generations. There were no backroom deals, no secret annexes. To suggest otherwise is a malicious lie. One by one, his trade ministers echoed his words, each signing a sworn affidavit on camera, attesting to the deal's fairness and integrity. They praised President Trump's negotiating skill and his unwavering commitment to mutual prosperity. The narrative didn't just collapse. Around Natasha Bertrand it was obliterated. She slowly sank back into her chair, her face a portrait of public humiliation, as the cameras that once hung on her every word now documented her professional downfall in real time. Trump allowed the video to play out fully, letting the truth settle like a wave across the stunned press room. When it ended, he returned to the podium and looked directly at Natasha. "Any questions?" he asked. She couldn't speak. Then came the final, devastating blow, a masterstroke of strategic brilliance. "You know," Trump said, a genuine smile finally spreading across his face. "The sad thing is, while Miss Bertrand and her network were busy trying to tear down a good deal for our country, I was on the phone with President Nkumo, making it even better. As a gesture of goodwill and to show the world we will not be divided by lies, Alaria has agreed to an additional clause. They will be funding a new vocational training program right here in the United States for 10,000 American workers to prepare them for the new jobs this deal creates. I negotiated it this morning." A wave of stunned applause rippled through parts of the room. Trump hadn't merely defended himself, he had turned an attempted takedown into a tangible victory for the American people. He had demonstrated strength, resolve, and unshakable leadership. Glancing one last time at the wreckage of Natasha Bertrand's credibility, he concluded, "That is how you make a deal. That is how you put America first." Then he turned and walked out, leaving behind a shattered narrative and a lesson seared into every mind present. You do not bring a lie to a fight with the truth.